Welcome. Take a moment to get comfortable. There's nothing you need to do right now. You can listen closely, or you can let the sound of English stay in the background while you relax, rest, or fall asleep. In this video, you'll hear simple, natural English through good news stories from around the world. Real people, real situations. Small moments that turned out well. There's no lesson to memorize. No pressure to understand everything. Just listening is enough. Let the language move at a slow, steady pace. Let your thoughts settle. And if your attention drifts, that's completely fine. Some people stay awake and listen. Others fall asleep along the way. Both are exactly how this is meant to work. Let's begin with some good news from around the world. Our first piece of good news is called How a European Medical Trial Helped Blind Patients Read Again Using an Electronic Eye Implant. Sounds interesting. In the autumn of 2025, a multinational clinical trial led by researchers from the University College London, Institute of Ophthalmology, and Moorfields Eye Hospital in London made international headlines after reporting a major breakthrough in restoring vision for people who had been legally blind for years. This research, published in the New England Journal of Medicine, involved a pioneering eye implant system paired with advanced augmented reality glasses that together allowed participants to see again, specifically to read letters, numbers, and even words. Despite previously having no usable central vision due to a progressive eye disease. The condition targeted by the trial is known as geographic atrophy, the advanced dry form of age-related macular degeneration. GA, this is the way that they refer to geographic atrophy, GA. GA is a leading cause of irreversible blindness in older adults, affecting millions worldwide. In people with this condition, cells in the central part of the retina, the macula, slowly die off, erasing the ability to see fine detail. That means sufferers lose clear central vision, and reading, recognizing faces, and even daily tasks like identifying food in a can become extremely difficult or impossible. Until now, there has been no approved medical treatment to stop or reverse this loss. The device used in the trial is called Prima system. That's PRIMA system. A tiny wireless microchip, roughly the size of a grain of rice, that is surgically implanted just beneath the retina. The chip is photovoltaic. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Some of these terms are new to me as well. Meaning it captures light and converts it into electrical signals. But on its own, the chip doesn't capture visual information. Instead, participants wear a special pair of augmented reality glasses equipped with a miniature video camera and infrared projection system. The camera records the visual scene in front of the person and sends that data to a small wearable computer. The computer then transmits it as coded infrared light to the implant. Once activated, the implanted microchip stimulates the remaining retinal cells, effectively substituting for the dead photoreceptors and sending new visual signals along the optic nerve to the brain. This combined system, implant plus glasses plus computer, effectively creates a new visual channel, allowing patients to perceive light patterns that the brain can interpret. In practice, this means many trial participants were able to read letters, recognize numerals, and even make out entire words in a controlled setting. Results from the study showed that about 84% of the patients reached a level of visual function where they could read enough to distinguish letters and short text, something none of them had been able to do before the implant. Some of those fitted with the device could read 5 lines on a standard vision chart, a dramatic improvement from no central vision at all. The trial took place across 17 hospital sites in 5 countries, including the UK, France, Germany, and other parts of Europe, enrolling a total of 38 patients. Each patient had previously lost central vision in the eye being treated and had limited only peripheral vision before participating. After the surgical implantation, a procedure that typically lasted a couple of hours under local anesthesia, patients spent weeks and months training with the system. This training included exercises in reading simple letters, progressing to words, and eventually translating the prosthetic visual signals into meaningful interpretation in daily life. One of the people who took part in the trial was Sheila Irvine, a resident of the United Kingdom who had been diagnosed with age-related macular degeneration more than 15 years earlier. Before the trial, Sheila described her vision as 2 black discs, saying that she could barely make out shapes or detailed objects. Reading, once a cherished pastime, had become impossible. After receiving the implant at Moorfields Eye Hospital and putting in months of training with the augmented reality glasses and visual exercises, Sheila began to make out letters. She gradually progressed to reading short text and sentences, a milestone that brought tears to her eyes and renewed optimism about what was possible. She later explained that the experience of reading again, even slowly and with effort, gave her a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. That's what she said. She said, "It gave me a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years." Medical professionals involved in the trial described the results as a transformative step for vision science. Mr. Mahi Mukit, not sure how to say that, names are tricky, you know, a senior vitreoretinal consultant at Moorfields Eye Hospital and a key leader of the UK trial arm, stated that this breakthrough opens the door to a new era in treating conditions for which there have been no effective therapies. He emphasized that the difficulty of restoring central vision in GA has long made it one of the toughest challenges in ophthalmology, making the trial's success an important milestone. Researchers are careful to note that this implanted system is not a complete restoration of natural sight. The current technology delivers high-contrast black and white patterns rather than full-color or high-resolution images, and reading still requires practice and effort. Still, the ability to interpret visual information and read at all for people who previously could not represents a profound quality of life improvement. Developers are already working on next-generation versions of the implant and software to improve resolution and even add features like grayscale and expand functionality to other visual tasks like facial recognition. Long-term plans for clinical rollout will depend on continued trials, regulatory approvals, and manufacturing scaling. But health experts predict that systems like this could become available outside research settings within several years. For millions of people worldwide living with advanced macular degeneration, this progress would represent not just a technical achievement, but a chance at regained independence, reading, and safe navigation of daily life. In a world where irreversible vision loss has long been considered permanent, this trial marks a hopeful turning point in what medical science can offer. And that brings us to the end of that story. We are going to start the second one. I often give commentary in these types of videos between readings, but I'm going to try a new style today today, either way, whatever it is where you are, where I just read things and I don't provide commentary. And you can let me know in the comments if it really makes any difference to you at all. For those of you who are falling asleep, I imagine it makes no difference. For those of you who actually listen attentively, which either way is fine, you could tell me in the comments what style you prefer these kinds of videos to be. Do you prefer when I talk more about my perspective and give my commentary on readings, or do you prefer that I just read? Some of you, I think, are going to say commentary, but this way allows me to kind of just shut off my brain and read and also not laugh as much. I just laughed, I know. But I think when I laugh a lot or I talk a lot and then there are pauses in my talking, it can make it so it's inconsistent and it can maybe wake people up or prevent them from going to sleep. So when I read, it kind of maintains this consistent rhythm of speaking, this consistent speaking, and I think that would be easier for falling asleep. So that's my idea with that. All right. So, and by the way, I am reading these stories. They're basically paraphrased stories taken from multiple articles, different pieces of information, from like good news stories around the world. I just want to make a disclaimer that I didn't verify any of this information. So it's probably mostly true, but I can't guarantee that everything is. So just take it with a grain of salt, but I think obviously it's not completely fabricated. There is definitely some truth in these stories, but I can't guarantee. I didn't check sources or anything. So just so you know, it's mostly just for you to listen to English. That's really the point. Okay. But who doesn't like some good news stories as well, right? We need some positive news stories in our life because so much of the news is negative. So, all right. So, here I have the next story for you. It is called How a Rural Indian Village Becomes Fully Solar Powered in Under 2 Years. All right. Just a second while I switch the microphone to my other hand. I am holding it. I find it to be easier this way so I can sit on the couch and relax with you and just kind of get into this relaxing vibe of this video. I still need to buy a microphone, like stand or some kind of way for me to like clip my microphone to something and then I don't have to hold it, but I don't know. We'll see. I don't mind holding it. Okay. So, here's the story. In early 2025, the village of Darnai, located in the eastern Indian state of Bihar. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce these names and places and people. I don't know how to pronounce any of this stuff, so forgive me. It's not English, so. Okay. So the village of Darnai, located in the eastern Indian state of Bihar, reached a milestone that many much larger communities are still struggling to achieve. It became fully powered by renewable solar energy. Darnai is home to roughly 2,000 residents, many of whom had lived for decades without reliable electricity. Power outages were common, and some homes had never been connected to the grid at all. The transformation began in 2023 when a partnership formed between local village leaders, an Indian renewable energy nonprofit, and engineers from the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. Instead of extending traditional power lines, an expensive and slow process, the team designed a decentralized solar microgrid. Panels were installed on community buildings, schools, and shared land, while battery storage units were added to provide electricity at night and during monsoon season. By mid-2024, every household in the village had access to consistent power. Schools extended their hours, small businesses stayed open after sunset, and residents began using electric water pumps instead of manual ones. In interviews, village residents said that the most immediate change was safety. Streets were now lit at night, followed by economic opportunity. Small tailoring shops, phone charging stations, and refrigerated food storage all appeared within months. Officials from Bihar's state government have since announced plans to replicate the Darnai model in dozens of other rural communities across the region. Nice. Okay, so the first one that we read was quite long, and then this one is a bit shorter. It looks like the ones we're looking at now are a bit shorter. The first one was a bit too long, don't you think? It was a bit too detailed, so from now on, the ones that we're reading are a bit more condensed and not as long, so we can kind of go through these stories faster. All right, it's not that we're in a rush or anything, of course not, but sometimes it's just going on, and it's like we don't really need all of those details, do we? If you're interested in any of these topics, you can look them up, and I'm sure you can find a lot more information. All right. So, number 2 is doctors in Brazil cut infant mortality using a simple, low-cost innovation. I am particularly interested because I am currently in Brazil. I am from the United States, but I am a digital nomad and I am always traveling and living in other places, and right now I am in Brazil. All right. At Hospital das Clínicas, that I know how to pronounce because I am learning Portuguese. Hospital. Pediatric doctors reported a sharp drop in infant complications this year after introducing a surprisingly simple medical change. Instead of relying on expensive imported neonatal equipment, doctors began using a redesigned low-cost warming system for premature babies in under-resourced areas. Brazil has made progress in maternal care over the past decade, but premature birth complications remain a leading cause of infant mortality, particularly outside major cities. In 2024, a team from the University of São Paulo Medical School began testing an alternative approach based on controlled thermal regulation and extended skin-to-skin contact. The results were published in early 2025. Premature infants using the new protocol showed higher weight gain, fewer infections, and shorter hospital stays. Most importantly, survival rates increased significantly in regional hospitals that lacked advanced neonatal units. The system is now being rolled out to public hospitals across multiple Brazilian states, with health officials calling it one of the most cost-effective medical improvements implemented in recent years. Excellent. Fantastic. Yes. Infants need skin-to-skin contact anyways, let alone premature infants. Yes, they need warmth. They need skin-to-skin. Okay. I said I wasn't going to give my commentary, and then look at me. All right. The number 3 is called A Japanese Train Line Revived in Aging Town Instead of Replacing It. In Toyama Prefecture, that's an English word, but I don't even know how to say that. I don't even know what it means, honestly. Japan, a rural train line, in Toyama Prefecture, Japan, a rural train line that was scheduled to be shut down has become an unexpected success story. Rather than closing the line due to low ridership, local governments partnered with residents to redesign the service around community needs. Instead of fewer trains, they added flexible scheduling timed to medical appointments, school hours, and local markets. The stations were turned into small community hubs with cafes, local art displays, and farmer stalls. Tourism campaigns highlighted scenic routes rather than speed. By early 2025, ridership had increased by over 40%. More importantly, young families began moving back into the region, reversing years of population decline. Officials say the project shows that infrastructure doesn't have to be fast or flashy to be valuable. It just has to serve real people. Nice. All right. Number 4. Kenya's mangrove restoration project is protecting entire coastlines. Along the coast near Lamu, Kenya, local conservation groups have restored thousands of acres of mangrove forests that were previously destroyed by development and logging. Mangroves play a crucial role in protecting coastlines from erosion, storm surges, and flooding. The project began in 2021, but reached a major milestone in 2025 when satellite data confirmed that coastal erosion had slowed dramatically in restored areas. Fish populations also rebounded, directly improving income for local fishing communities. Led by Kenyan environmental scientists and funded in part by international climate grants, the project employs local residents who plant and maintain the mangroves. Community leaders say the effort has turned environmental protection into a stable source of employment. All right. The mangroves. Okay, number 5. A small Canadian city eliminated chronic homelessness. Fantastic. In Medicine Hat, Alberta, that's a funny city name or town name, Medicine Hat. In Medicine Hat, Alberta, city officials confirmed in 2025 that they had effectively ended chronic homelessness through a housing-first approach. Instead of temporary shelters, the city prioritized permanent housing combined with mental health and addiction services. The program began years ago, but reached a turning point this year when the city reported that every chronically homeless resident had been offered permanent housing. Follow-up data showed reductions in emergency room visits and police interactions. Saving public money in the long term. Other Canadian cities are now studying Medicine Hat's model as a template for scalable solutions. Yes, it is a big problem, homelessness, and I'm glad that somebody's working on it. All right. Number 6. Spain's rewilding project brought back an ecosystem. In southern Spain, near the Iberian highlands, conservationists announced the return of several keystone species, including wild horses and vultures. Wow, wild horses. After decades of ecological decline, the rewilding project focused on letting nature recover with minimal human interference. Scientists reported increased biodiversity, healthier soil. There was an ambulance that just went by. Scientists reported increased biodiversity, healthier soil, and improved water retention. Rural tourism also increased, providing economic benefits without industrial development. Wonderful. I would love to see a wild horse. A vulture, I guess so. Not as excited, but I will. I'm open to it. Okay. Number 7. A public school district in the U.S. raised literacy without extra homework. Well, that sounds like a no-brainer to me. I did not think that, I never thought that extra homework would correlate to increased literacy, so I'm not surprised that you can do it without extra homework. Anyways, in Mississippi, one of the lowest ranking states for literacy, a public school district introduced structured reading time during the school day instead of assigning more homework. Teachers focused on guided reading and phonics-based instruction. By 2025, third grade reading scores had risen sharply. Educators credited consistency and reduced stress, rather than longer hours, as the key factor. Yeah, it's not really about how much you do it in a day, it's about consistency and enjoying it and being receptive and focused when you do it. The same applies to learning a language. Number 8, Iceland is turning carbon into stone. At a geothermal plant near, I don't know how they pronounce this place, Reykjavik, I don't know, I have no idea. Engineers successfully scaled up a process that captures carbon dioxide and injects it underground, where it turns into solid rock within a few years. This technology, developed by Icelandic scientists, has moved from experimental to operational scale. The project is now being studied by other countries with volcanic geology as a long-term carbon storage solution. See, it ends there, and I would like to know more about that. So I would like more information on that, and I don't know why I'm not seeing much information here on this. It's just like one little paragraph, and I want a whole article, so I might have to look that up later. But doesn't that sound really interesting? Turning carbon into rock and putting it underground? Wow. That sounds like revolutionary. Okay. Yeah, sorry that there's not a lot of details. I'm going to try to fix it so that there's more details. Hold on. Well, I'll do it after I finish these next two. And then I will try to fix it. Okay. So the next one is called A Nigerian Tech Hub is Training Thousands of Remote Workers. In Lagos, a nonprofit tech hub partnered with international companies to train young Nigerians in software development, customer service, and digital design. Graduates are now working remotely for companies across Europe and North America. The program focuses on practical skills rather than formal degrees and has helped participants earn stable incomes without emigrating. I love stories like that. I love knowing that people who are not even moving to the United States or Canada or countries in Europe, they are staying in their home countries and they are still able to take away jobs from. I love that. I love that because the reason why I like that, it's not that I like people in higher paying countries losing jobs to companies outsourcing to lower paying countries and getting their workers remotely that way. It's not that I want anybody to suffer or be without a job. It's just that I like this because it dismantles this false idea of like immigrants taking jobs, because they love to say that immigrants take jobs and whatever. But this is a way that shows that even if you don't let immigrants in your country, for those people who don't want they don't want immigration in their country, people who are not even entering their country can still take their job in this day and age with the internet. And I think that's fantastic because, like I said, it dismantles this whole idea, this whole argument of, oh, well, they're taking our jobs, so we can't let them in the country. Because in reality, it's people overseas that are taking your jobs too. So, yeah, that's why I like it. Not that I like anybody losing a job, but I like that it dismantles that myth. Yeah. Okay, next one. New Zealand restored a river by giving it legal rights. In 2025, New Zealand expanded legal protections for the Wanganui River, recognizing it as a legal entity with rights. This allowed indigenous Maori groups and environmental agencies to jointly manage the river's health. Water quality has improved, biodiversity has returned, and conflicts over resource use have decreased. Legal experts say the model could influence environmental law worldwide. I like it in theory, like it sounds great, anything to help the environment, but it's just kind of crazy to me that they're willing to give a river legal rights, but not animals, which are sentient beings. Animals have the capacity to feel. Water does not feel like animals do. Water does not have a brain and a nervous system. Yes, the river is not just water. It's also literally animals in the river and etc. I get it's not just the water. It's more than that. But my point is just that I'm not saying that giving rights to a river is wrong. I totally support that. I just think it's crazy that we're giving rights to river, but we can't even give rights to sentient beings. That's my point. Like, like the billions of land animals that are bred into existence for food every year, and the trillions that are killed in oceans, from the fishing industry and stuff. So it's like, where are their rights? Like, it's great that this river in New Zealand has rights now, but where are the rights of all of those beings that are actually suffering, that are actually like in pain and suffering? Yeah, literally, physically, and emotionally. Yes. Because sentient beings have emotions. Yeah, so all right, so I'm going to pause it there, and then I will pick up. I just need to stop it for a minute so I can get some more stories to read to you, and then we will pick up where I left off. All right, I am back, and I improved the readings, the texts that I'm reading. I made them a bit longer because they were getting a little bit too short. And I even elaborated on the Iceland carbon story because I wanted more information about that personally. So I have more information, so that will be in a couple stories. We will get to that one. All right. But first, we have how Rwanda quietly built one of the most effective low-cost cancer care systems in Africa. In early 2025, Rwanda's Ministry of Health released updated national cancer statistics that surprised a lot of people outside the region. Survival rates for several common cancers, especially breast and cervical cancer, had improved steadily across multiple provinces. What stood out most was not just the improvement itself, but the fact that it happened in a country with limited resources and a relatively small healthcare budget. Much of this progress centers on Butaro District Hospital, located in Rwanda's northern province, close to the Ugandan border. Butaro was originally a modest rural hospital, but over the past decade it has become Rwanda's main referral center for cancer care. This shift came from a long-term partnership between Rwanda's public health system, the international nonprofit Partners in Health, and physicians connected to Harvard Medical School. Instead of trying to copy expensive cancer centers from Europe or the US, Rwanda focused on fixing the biggest systemic problems that cause cancer deaths in low-income settings: late diagnosis, inconsistent treatment plans, and long delays between testing and treatment. Doctors across the country were trained to recognize early warning signs, referral systems were standardized, and pathology services were centralized so results could be processed faster and more reliably. By 2025, patients were being diagnosed earlier and starting treatment weeks, not months, sooner. Health officials emphasized that the success came from coordination and consistency, not cutting-edge technology. Rwanda's approach is now being studied by other countries looking to improve cancer outcomes without massive new spending. Who would have thunk? It's not necessarily the cutting-edge technology that's going to help the healthcare system. It's literally just being proactive, attentive, consistent, organized, etc. Detecting early warning signs. Yeah. Who would have thunk? I say sarcastically. Okay, excellent. Good for Rwanda. Thank you. Number 2. How Finland reduced teen stress. Sorry, then I feel the need to explain. I was being sarcastic with the last one because I'm like making fun of how healthcare systems in a lot of countries, especially in the United States, are really bad. And it's not that they need more technology, it's that their system of doing things is just bad. Like, for example, my mother died of cancer and she was in the United States, and her healthcare experience with the diagnosing of that and literally everything related to that was horrible. So even in the United States, they're like totally, they need to learn from Rwanda is basically what I'm saying. Okay, I just want to clarify that. Number 2, how Finland reduced teen stress by redesigning the school day instead of adding pressure. Finland, isn't that the country that is like the most advanced when it comes to the school system? They like made homework illegal or something, and they banned homework, and they do like super useful type of realistic, important education that has a lot of freedom. I think it's Finland that's leading the education progress. Yeah. Okay. In Espoo, a city just outside Helsinki, education officials noticed a growing problem by the early 2020s. Finnish students continued to score well academically, but surveys showed rising levels of stress, anxiety, and burnout, particularly among teenagers. Many students reported feeling constantly evaluated and mentally exhausted. Instead of adding more counselors or awareness programs alone, Espoo's education department decided to change the structure of the school day itself. Beginning in 2023, several secondary schools redesigned their schedules. Class periods were lengthened to allow deeper focus. Standardized testing frequency was reduced, and longer breaks were built into the day. Homework loads were capped, and teachers were encouraged to prioritize understanding over speed. Oh, so I guess they didn't completely get rid of homework. They just put a limit on how much you can get. The goal wasn't to lower expectations, but to reduce constant pressure. Students were given more time to process information instead of rushing from one assessment to the next. By 2025, follow-up studies showed clear reductions in reported stress and anxiety, while academic performance remained stable. Teachers described calmer classrooms and better concentration. Education researchers across Europe now cite Espoo as evidence that less pressure can actually support better learning. Who would have thunk, I say sarcastically. I love this. I hate/love, because it's funny, that it takes until 2025 for like people to realize stuff that just seems like common sense. I don't know why it takes so long for people to realize stuff that to me it just seems like intuitive. But anyways. Okay, number 3. So this is back to the Iceland story because I wanted more information. So it's going to sound familiar. How Iceland is permanently turning carbon dioxide into stone underground. I still don't know how to pronounce the name of their cities, but just outside Reykjavik at the Hellisheoi, geothermal power plant. Engineers are doing something that sounds almost unreal. They are turning carbon dioxide into rock. The project, known as CarbFix, is a collaboration between Icelandic energy company On Power, researchers at the University of Iceland, and international climate scientists. Iceland's geology makes this possible. much of the island is made of basalt, a volcanic rock rich in minerals that naturally react with carbon dioxide. At Helishoi, this place, carbon dioxide captured from geothermal emissions and increasingly from direct air capture machines is dissolved in water and injected deep underground, usually between 700 and 1200 meters below the surface. Once injected, the dissolved CO2 reacts with the basalt and mineralizes into solid carbonate rock. According to the studies published by the CarbFix team, more than 90% of the injected carbon turns into stone within 2 years, a process that would normally take thousands of years in nature. Wow. Because the carbon becomes rock, it cannot leak back into the atmosphere. By 2025, the project had attracted attention from scientists and policymakers around the world, especially in countries with similar geology. Many see CarbFix as one of the most promising examples of truly permanent carbon removal currently operating at real-world scale. So I'm interested in that. That's the end of it. Yeah, I think that's very fascinating. I mean, really, the most important thing is not first, but just, I cannot talk about removing carbon and helping the environment without talking about the importance of switching to a plant-based diet because of just how much land is, it uses 75% less land. So we would be able to free up 75% of our land. Wait, did I say that right? We would be able to free up a lot of land. Okay. We're not going to do the math right now, but we would be able to free up a lot of land that could then be rewilded and reforested, and reforested land. That is really, rewilded land is really, even if it doesn't turn into a forest, but it's just rewilded and wild plants are able to grow and whatnot. That alone sequesters, that's the original carbon sequestration method is literally nature. So that should be a priority as well, people who are interested in climate science and the environment and conservationists and this and that, they often talk about all these other things that we should be doing, but they forget to talk about the importance of switching to a plant-based diet. So, and rewilding spaces, it goes beyond just that. There's other ways that we can rewild land and stuff, but that's really the original carbon sequestration method that we should be utilizing as well. But this is also interesting, of turning carbon into rock and putting it underground. That is also interesting. I don't know how scalable that will be and where it can be done, and how much carbon realistically can be put away like that. But I don't think it's going to be a one thing, like the ultimate solution, but it could be one of many things. All right. Let's go to the next one. Number 4. It is called How Portugal Reduced Drug Deaths by Treating Addiction as a Health Issue. Yeah. Another thing that seems like common sense, but people don't understand. Okay. I'm so sarcastic. Okay. That wasn't even sarcasm. That was just, I literally just told you that people don't understand. Okay. In Lisbon, Portugal. I wonder where that is. I'm kidding, guys, I'm kidding. In Lisbon, Portugal, public health data released in 2025 showed that drug-related deaths and disease transmission rates remained among the lowest in Western Europe. This outcome is especially notable because Portugal took a radically different approach to drug policy more than 2 decades ago. Yes, I remember this. I remember hearing about it, not learning about it. I don't remember when it actually happened, because I was 4 years old. But yeah, in 2001, Portugal decriminalized the possession of small amounts of all drugs. Instead of arresting people, authorities redirected them to commissions for the dissuasion of drug addiction. Panels made up of health professionals and social workers. These panels assess whether someone needs treatment, counseling, or social support. In Lisbon, this policy was paired with expanded addiction treatment programs, mental health services, housing support, and job placement initiatives. Outreach teams worked directly in affected neighborhoods, building trust and encouraging voluntary treatment. In 2025, overdose deaths had dropped dramatically compared to pre-2001 levels. HIV transmission related to drug use had declined sharply, and long-term addiction rates stabilized. International experts emphasized that Portugal did not legalize drugs, it reframed addiction as a health issue instead of a criminal one. And that's exactly the whole point. That was my own commentary at the end there, but that's it right there. Reframing addiction as a health issue instead of a criminal issue. It is a typically mental health issue, a trauma-related issue. Addiction it's a mental health issue. It's an emotional issue. It's not people who are like looking to harm others. They are harming themselves. Why are they harming themselves? Well, that is a whole thing to be explored. So, it's crazy to put people who harm themselves in the same criminal category and punishments and everything as people who harm others. Both suffer from mental health issues, from trauma, even the people who harm others. It's all a mental health issue. But obviously the ones that harm others are more serious cases. So it's crazy to put people who harm themselves only into those same categories. And that's the issue with the current criminal system in a lot of countries in regards to drugs. Okay. Yeah, Portugal's pretty cool how they've kind of been a leader in changing the way that we perceive drugs and addiction. Because people often think that changing a strict criminal kind of perspective on drugs would cause the use to increase or at least stay the same, but it actually decreases. And Portugal is a pioneer in showing us that. And I think that's awesome. Okay, number 5, next one. Well, it's not number 5. I don't even know what number we're on. It's number whatever. It doesn't matter. We don't need numbers. It's just a story. It's another story. Okay. This story is called How a Public Library System in Cleveland Became a Major Job Placement Hub. In Cleveland, Ohio, in the United States, librarians began noticing a pattern as traditional manufacturing jobs declined. More patrons were coming to libraries not just for internet access, but because they didn't know how to navigate online job applications, resumes, or digital hiring systems. Instead of treating this as a temporary problem, the Cleveland Public Library System redefined its mission. Librarians were trained in resume writing, basic career coaching, and digital literacy. Dedicated workforce assistant spaces were created inside library branches across the city. The library system also partnered with local employers, allowing job positions and recruitment events to take place directly inside libraries. For many residents, the library became the most accessible place to get help without stigma or cost. In 2025, city data showed that thousands of people had secured employment with direct assistance from library programs. What started as a quiet adaptation became one of Cleveland's most effective workforce development tools. Yeah, we tend to forget about that. That's interesting. How everything just kind of got digital really quickly, and all the people who didn't grow up with that and didn't learn how to do that, how to navigate the online job application system, they kind of got screwed, you know? It's like you had to learn a whole new system just to apply to for jobs. So that's cool. All right, let's take a look at the next ones. The next one is called How Japan is Using AI and Local Clinics to Keep Elderly People Independent Longer. All right. Yes, did we already? I don't know. Okay, it says in Toyama Prefecture, but we already talked about that, but I think it was related to the train. So I guess it's taking place in the same area, but it's a different story. Cool. This place is doing a lot in Japan. So in Toyama Prefecture, Japan, I don't even know how to pronounce it. If it's prefecture, prefecture, I don't even know. Local governments have been quietly rolling out a new healthcare model designed to address one of the country's biggest challenges, a rapidly aging population. By 2025, more than a third of residents in the region were over the age of 65, putting increasing strain on hospitals and long-term care facilities. Instead of expanding nursing homes alone, Toyama invested in a network connecting neighborhood clinics, home care nurses, and AI-assisted health monitoring tools. Elderly residents voluntarily use simple devices that track mobility, sleep patterns, and vital signs. The data is shared securely with local healthcare providers, who can intervene early if signs of decline appear. Doctors report that this system has helped prevent falls, reduce emergency hospital visits, and identify health issues weeks earlier than before. More importantly, many older residents are able to remain in their own homes longer, maintaining independence and social connections. By 2025, Japan's Ministry of Health highlighted Toyama as a national model, and similar programs began expanding to rural areas where hospital access is limited. The approach emphasizes prevention and dignity rather than crisis response. So they're kind of doing something a little similar to Rwanda in the sense that they're just being more proactive, and they're just being more into the preventive, or not just preventive, but the early diagnosing, early catching, early detecting side of things. So they're trying to detect problems before they get too serious. And that, my friends, is key. All right. Next one is called How a City in India Cut Air Pollution Levels Without Shutting Down Industry. In Surat, Gujarat, if any of you are Indian, you're like listening, like cringing right now, laughing at me. Anyways, sorry. I don't know. One of India's fastest growing industrial cities, air pollution was once considered an unavoidable cost of economic growth. Textile factories, diamond processing plants, and heavy traffic contributed to poor air quality that regularly exceeded national safety limits. Rather than ordering factory shutdowns, Surat's municipal government, I don't even know the English word, pronunciation, partnered with local universities and environmental engineers to introduce a real-time pollution monitoring system. By 2023, dozens of sensors were installed across industrial zones and residential neighborhoods, providing live data on emissions and air quality. Factories that exceeded pollution thresholds were notified immediately and given short windows to correct the issue. Not literal windows, but like they were given a short period of time, short window of time. In case you didn't understand. Many companies upgraded filtration systems or adjusted production schedules to avoid penalties. Public dashboards made pollution levels visible to residents, creating pressure for compliance. By 2025, average particulate pollution levels had dropped significantly, even as industrial output continued to grow. Environmental researchers now cite Surat as proof that transparency and enforcement can reduce pollution without sacrificing jobs. Nice. All right. Yes, pollution's a big problem. It's a big issue. Okay, next one is 8. I'm sorry. I keep forgetting that we're not really doing numbers here, and I have numbers on mine, but just forget about it. Don't pay attention to the numbers. There is no order. We're just like reading random good news stories, okay? Okay. Go back to sleep. Thank you. How a rural region in Spain reversed population decline by supporting remote work. Nice. In the province of Teruel, located in eastern Spain, decades of population loss had left entire villages nearly abandoned. Schools closed, businesses disappeared, and younger generations moved to major cities like Madrid and Barcelona. Starting in 2022, the regional government launched a program focused on attracting remote workers. High-speed internet infrastructure was expanded. Unused buildings were converted into co-working spaces. And financial incentives were offered to people willing to relocate. By 2025, hundreds of remote workers from Spain and other European countries had moved to Teruel's towns. New cafes, child care services, and local businesses followed. Schools reopened in some villages for the first time in years. Sociologists studying the region note that the success wasn't just about internet access, but about rebuilding community life. Teruel is now referenced across Europe as a case study in how rural areas can adapt to a remote work economy. I personally love the idea of living in a small, cute town in nature, in a rural town. As long as it has like a nice little central town area where we kind of gather and, as a community and stuff. In the US, little towns in the countryside tend to be so spread out that and they tend to lack kind of a central place where people kind of gather and meet up and stuff. So, but I like the idea of a little town with a kind of a central main street or whatever. And people just working remotely from their homes, but people also interacting with other townspeople. And yeah, I think it'd be great if you have friends, if you have a family, if you have kids, partner, Yeah, Teruel. Okay, maybe I'll move there. Nah, I like Latin America too much. Okay. Next one. How Kenya expanded clean drinking water access using community-owned solar systems. In Kajiado country, Kenya, access to clean drinking water has long been inconsistent due to droughts and unreliable electricity. Diesel-powered water pumps were expensive to operate and often broke down, leaving communities without water for weeks. Local cooperatives, supported by Kenyan engineers and international development organizations, began installing solar-powered water pumping systems connected to underground aquifers. I think that's how you say it. The systems are owned and maintained by community groups, not private companies. Residents pay small maintenance fees, which are reinvested locally. Training programs ensure that technicians live in the area, allowing repairs to happen quickly. By 2025, thousands of households had gained reliable access to clean water year-round. Oh, that's very important. So important. Health clinics reported fewer waterborne illnesses, and women and children spent less time walking long distances to collect water. The model is now expanding to other arid regions of East Africa. Wow. So this is because of solar-powered water pumping systems. Incredible. Gosh, solar-powered, the things we can do with solar power, man, it's so cool. Yeah, so here in São Paulo, Brazil, where I currently am, I recently went to an exhibit at an art museum. Basically it was an exhibit of a lot of photographs. It was just photographs of different places in the world where the photographer had gone and taken pictures that showed people who live in areas that are a bit challenging to get clean, reliable drinking water, where they have to they don't have running water, so they have to go collect water or whatever. And I'm pretty sure that one of the places that he photographed a lot of was Kenya. Yeah, there were other countries too, but Kenya was one of them, I think. But yeah, so yeah, it's really basically the whole exhibit was about how people are struggling to get the most basic thing, which is drinking water, and that's without drinking water, easily accessible, it's like, how can you care about anything else? How can you prioritize anything else in your life when that is your number one? It's such a basic thing that we all need so frequently, and we it's so vital and it's so simple in theory to get, but it's actually like a daily struggle for a lot of people in the world, and that's crazy that it's 2025 and it's still that way. Yeah, it's crazy that some people have mansions and, multiple houses and have private jets, and other people don't even have accessible drinking water. Easily accessible. So, yeah, crazy. Shouldn't be happening, but still happening. So this is a nice story to read. I hope they can continue to set up these solar-powered water pumping systems. All right, the next one is how New Zealand reduced youth homelessness through early intervention. In Auckland, New Zealand, social service agencies noticed that many homeless young people shared similar backgrounds: family instability, missed schooling, and lack of early support. Instead of focusing only on emergency shelters, the city invested in prevention. Beginning in 2023, schools, healthcare providers, and housing services were connected through a shared early warning system. When students showed signs of housing insecurity or family breakdown, support teams intervened before homelessness occurred. These teams provided temporary housing, counseling, and educational support, and job training. By 2025, Auckland reported a significant drop in youth homelessness, along with higher school retention rates among at-risk teens. Officials emphasized that preventing homelessness is far less costly and far more humane than responding after it happens. Yeah, go figure. Yep. The problem is now influencing national housing policy discussions. Once again, another thing that's not rocket science, is kind of a no-brainer, but yeah, some people don't get that. Yeah. So are you seeing a similar theme among these good news stories? A lot of the good news is just about people realizing and organizing themselves to get, better detect problems early on, whether it's cancer or it's homelessness. Basically, the key is in detecting it early on and intervening versus waiting for the problem to happen, the consequence, and then intervening. And I really like that it says here, officials emphasize that preventing homelessness is far less costly and far more humane than responding after it happens. Yeah, so not only is it just more efficient, it's less expensive and it's more humane. It's way better for the victims of homelessness. So, yeah. Yep, I wish we could do that in the United States. I wish we could do that in a lot of places. Good for you, New Zealand. New Zealand is sometimes they're they're pretty revolutionary with some of the things that they do. That's cool. Alrighty then. Want to do a few more? Yeah, let's keep going. Let's do. I'm gonna put 5 more. Let's see if we're gonna do 5 more. Okay. I'm enjoying this. I'm comfortable. Are you comfy? Do you want to keep going? Are you comfy? Alrighty then. Number 11. Oh, sorry, I did it again. It's not 11. It's just forget it. It's probably like number 25 or something. I don't know. How the Netherlands is quietly rewilding large areas of land while farming continues. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna like this one because if they're rewilding large areas of land while continuing animal farming, then I have a problem with this. This is stupid. Okay. In several provinces across the Netherlands, including Gelderland, and Flevoland, land that was once intensively farmed is being transformed into shared landscapes where agriculture and wildlife coexist. This shift is a part of a long-term national effort to restore biodiversity without pushing farmers off their land. Instead of abandoning farming altogether, Dutch planners redesigned land use. Fields were reorganized to include wetlands, tree corridors, and natural floodplains. Farmers were financially compensated for adopting lower impact practices such as reduced fertilizer use and seasonal grazing. By 2025, bird populations that had nearly disappeared, including spoonbills and marsh harriers, had begun returning. Water quality improved and flood risks dropped in nearby towns due to restored natural drainage areas. Environmental researchers point out that the success of the program lies in cooperation rather than conflict. Farmers remained economically stable, ecosystems recovered, and the land became more resilient to climate extremes. Other European countries are now studying the Dutch model closely. Okay, they didn't give a lot of specific information, but so they're trying to merge like animal farming, domestic animal farming with wildlife, but the reality is that domestic animal farming, it just requires such a ridiculously large amount of land to be used, and especially if you're doing pasture raised animals, that requires, the most land. So, and you can't really rewild land if there are animals on it. If it's pasture land for animals, for domesticated animals, I mean. So I don't really get what they're trying to do here, because they would be able to free up so much more land if they just switched to plant farming, but anyways, they're trying to maintain they're trying to keep eating corpses while they save the environment, but it's a contradiction. It doesn't make sense, really. It's not the most smart thing mathematically, environmentally speaking. Okay. Yeah, they didn't go into specific details in this, so I don't really know exactly what they were what they're doing, but okay. Next one, number 12. Sorry, I did it again. It's not 12. It's no number. How South Korea dramatically reduced food waste using a pay-as-you-throw system. Okay, because normally we say pay-as-you-go, but it's pay-as-you-throw. Okay, interesting. In Seoul, South Korea, food waste was once a massive environmental problem. Large volumes of discarded food ended up in landfills, producing methane emissions and driving up waste management costs. Well, if that food wasn't in packages, if it was collected as organic matter, it could just be composted, but yeah, it probably was in plastic packages and crap. To address this, the city introduced a smart food waste system. Residents dispose of food scraps in special bins that weigh the waste electronically. Households are charged small fees based on how much they throw away, creating a direct incentive to reduce waste. Wow, so South Korea is actually charging people money for producing more trash. Wow. That's a little crazy. That's a little, wow. I think a lot of people might not like that, but it's kind of cool. It might be the most effective thing, honestly. The system is paired with public education campaigns and widespread composting infrastructure. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. Composting. Thank you. That's what we need. Collected food waste is converted into animal feed, fertilizer, or biogas. Yeah, it should be fertilizer for plants. Okay. By 2025, Seoul had reduced food waste by more than half compared to early 2000s levels. Urban planners now cite Seoul as one of the most effective examples of behavior-based environmental policy at scale. The system has since been adapted by other cities across Asia. Yeah, I don't understand why it's so hard for places to just collect organic waste and turn it into compost and use it for community gardens or growing food like plants, like agriculture or whatever, I don't know why it's so frustrating. I'm usually in Latin America or the United States. They don't even do this in the United States either. But anyways, I spend most of the time in Latin America, and some places collect organic food waste, but you have to put it in a plastic bag. So I feel so ridiculous putting my fruit and vegetable scraps in a plastic bag to then throw in the organic waste bin. It's just it defeats the whole purpose of collecting organic food. What is the point of collecting organic food waste if you have to put it in a plastic bag? And then it's just full of food scraps in plastic bags. It drives me insane. Our waste, the way that we deal with waste is so in the dark ages for 2025, almost 2026. It's the end of December. Yeah, if you're listening to this in 2026 or in any other year in the future, when I'm recording it, it's currently December 2025. And yeah, our system in so many countries, probably most countries, for dealing with waste, food waste, everything, it's just so outdated. It's so wasteful. It's such a waste. Because the food scraps is not a waste. food that we throw out, it doesn't have to be wasted. It can go right back into the soil, into building nutrient-rich soil to grow more food in. Like, it doesn't have to be considered a waste, but the way that we're dealing with it is a waste. You know? Like, food scraps has the potential to be like nutrition for the soil, but when we don't use it that way, we are literally wasting it. It's valuable nutrients. Okay. Next one is how Brazil expanded free public internet access through its library network. Nice. Another one about Brazil. Okay. In cities like Recife, Belo Horizonte, and São Luís, Brazil's public libraries have taken on a new role, acting as community digital hubs. As internet access became essential for work, education, and government services, gaps in connectivity left many residents behind. Beginning in the early 2020s, municipal governments partnered with federal programs to upgrade library infrastructure. High-speed internet, extended hours, and digital skills workshops were introduced, particularly in lower-income neighborhoods. By 2025, libraries were hosting job application sessions, online school support, and digital literacy classes for older adults. For many residents, the library became the most reliable place to access essential online services. Officials emphasize that the program strengthened civic participation and economic opportunities without creating new institutions. Can you hear a dog barking in the background? It simply expanded the role of an existing trusted one. Okay. So they didn't create new institutions, they just expanded the role of an existing trusted one. So the library. Nice. Another story kind of about using libraries to help people with their jobs, basically, with the internet and the jobs. Yeah. I like that. I'd like to see libraries utilized more, even if it's for other things. I like to see community spaces being used in public community spaces. It's good. Okay, next one. How a region in France cut childhood obesity rates by changing school meals. Okay, in Occitanie, I don't speak French, so. A large region in southern France, public health officials noticed rising childhood obesity rates despite widespread awareness campaigns. Rather than focusing on messaging alone, the region targeted school meals directly. Starting in 2022, public schools shifted to meals prepared with locally sourced ingredients, smaller portion sizes of processed foods, and more vegetables cooked in traditional regional styles. Nutrition education was built into the curriculum, but without moralizing or calorie counting. By 2025, health data showed a measurable decline in obesity rates among primary school students. Teachers also reported better concentration and fewer afternoon energy crashes. Nutrition experts say the program succeeded because it changed the default environment instead of relying on individual willpower. Other French regions are now adopting similar meal standards. Okay, they didn't really get into specifics of like examples of meals, but okay. Yeah, also, what do they mean by more vegetables? Do they mean like low-calorie vegetables or high-calorie vegetables? Like, are we talking about broccoli? Are we talking about beans? What are we talking about here? Yeah. Yeah. Also, it says health data showed a measurable decline, but that's very vague. Like, what is measurable? Like, that you can measure it? Okay, but that could be like a 1% decline. Like, you could say it's measurable, but it's not a big decline. So I think it's a very vague term and doesn't really give me much specific information. But all right. That's funny, France, though. They love to. Well, the stereotype is that they like to hate on Americans or people from the US. And they think their food is like superior and stuff, but then they have an obesity. They have a childhood obesity problem. It's like, you guys are just like the United States. Okay. No number. Next one. How a city in Canada is using heat mapping to save lives during extreme summers. In Vancouver, British Columbia, heat-related deaths during extreme weather events raised alarms after several deadly heat waves earlier in the decade. Sorry, there is a loud truck going by. It's 1:41 a.m. and the big trucks do not sleep. They stay awake and they drive around all throughout the night. So if you can hear anything in the background, that is what you're hearing. I promise it is the nighttime. You wouldn't even know. Okay. City officials realized that not all neighborhoods were affected equally. Using detailed heat mapping data, Vancouver identified specific areas where temperatures remained dangerously high due to building density, lack of green space, and limited airflow. These zones were prioritized for intervention. By 2025, the city had installed shaded bus stops, cooling centers, and reflective pavement, and expanded tree coverage in high-risk neighborhoods. We should do that anyways, regardless. Emergency outreach teams checked on vulnerable residents during heat alerts. Public health officials reported a reduction in heat-related hospitalizations during recent heat waves. Vancouver's data-driven approach is now influencing urban planning strategies in other North American cities facing rising temperatures. Nice. Yes, we should always have shaded bus stops, cooling centers, reflective pavement, and expanded tree coverage everywhere. All right. How we feeling? You know, over here, it's getting a little late for me. I'm getting a little tired. I think I'm going to stop it for here, and I'm going to pick up maybe tomorrow night with a second part of recording this for you guys. So for you, it will go right to the next one. And for me, it is good night and talk to you soon. Hello, friends. I am back for the next session. It is the next night for me. It is 1:38 a.m. and we're picking up where we left off with the good news stories. Are you ready to continue? Are you awake? Are you asleep? Doesn't matter. We're doing it anyway. All right. So the next one is called How Singapore is Reducing Flood Risk by Designing the City to Absorb Water instead of fighting it. In Singapore, flash flooding used to be treated as an engineering failure. Something to block divert, or pump away as fast as possible. As rainfall became heavier and more unpredictable over the past decade, city planners realized that traditional drainage systems alone were no longer enough. Instead of relying only on underground tunnels and concrete canals, Singapore began redesigning public spaces to absorb water. Parks, schoolyards, parking areas, and even sidewalks were rebuilt with permeable surfaces that allow rainwater to soak into the ground. Large green spaces were designed to temporarily flood during storms and drain slowly afterward. One major example is Bishan Ang Mo Kyo Park, where a concrete canal was replaced with a naturalized river system surrounded by floodable parkland. During heavy rain, the river expands safely. During dry periods, the area functions as a normal public space. By 2025, government data showed fewer flash flood incidents in redesigned neighborhoods. Urban planners around the world now study Singapore's approach as a model for climate-resilient city design that works with nature rather than against it. I'm not at all surprised that we had a story about Singapore among our stories here of good news. I would be surprised if we didn't. Singapore is a bit of a progressive, very developed city, and I think they are definitely one of the leading cities as far as development, and yeah, they seem to be one of the more successful cities or city-states in the world, city countries. So yeah. All right. Dealing with water. Okay, the next one is called How Uruguay, or in English they say Uruguay, built one of the world's cleanest electricity grids in under a decade. Uruguay has also done some cool stuff. They're an interesting progressive country as well, for various reasons. In the early 2010s, Uruguay relied heavily on imported fossil fuels and was vulnerable to drought-related power shortages. Energy prices fluctuated wildly, and the country's small size made it sensitive to external shocks. Rather than waiting for international pressure, Uruguay's government committed to a rapid transition toward renewable energy. Long-term policy stability attracted private investment in wind, solar, and biomass projects across the country, especially in rural regions. By 2025, more than 90% of Uruguay's electricity came from renewable sources. Wind farms across departments like Tacuarembó and Rocha now supply consistent power, while hydropower and solar provide balance during different seasons. The transition lowered energy costs, stabilized the grid, and reduced carbon emissions, all without major political backlash. Energy analysts often point out that Uruguay's success came from consistency, not ideology, making it one of the most practical, clean energy case studies globally. Wow. Nice. By 2025, more than 90% of Uruguay's electricity came from renewable sources. Nice. That's pretty impressive. That is quite impressive, I must say so. Nice. I will say, I do think it's a bit easier for smaller countries like Uruguay and like of course like Singapore and I think it is easier for smaller countries um to do stuff like to get shit done, but not necessarily because there are small countries that are not doing so well as far as their development and stuff. So it's not like just that. Obviously, it's an oversimplification, but like I don't know. I just think that these massive countries, um, like Brazil or the United States or whatever, like it's like harder to like get shit done because there's like it's just so chaotic and there's so many people and so many different states and different things going on and different needs and different I don't know. Maybe what I'm saying is actually not based in logic or math or anything. Maybe it's just like an idea that I made up in my head that's not true, but I don't know. It's just something that I always think about. Okay. Next one is called How Germany is Retraining Coal Workers Instead of Letting Regions Collapse. As Germany accelerates its coal phase out, regions like North Rhine-Westphalia and Lusatia faced a similar problem. Entire communities built around one industry risked economic collapse. Instead of offering only early retirement packages, the German government invested heavily in retraining programs tied to specific regional job markets. Workers were offered paid training in renewable energy maintenance, electrical engineering, construction retrofitting, and advanced manufacturing. Universities and technical schools opened satellite campuses in former coal regions, ensuring people didn't have to relocate to retrain. Infrastructure investments followed, including rail upgrades and research centers. By 2025, employment levels in several former coal-dependent areas had stabilized. While transition wasn't painless, economics note that Germany avoided the long-term social damage seen in past industrial shutdowns by planning before closures happened. All right, we have another story about the importance of proactive behavior, like doing things before things happen, like before the bad stuff happens, preparing, planning, checking in, and organizing and finding a solution before. We've seen this theme occur many times in these stories, and really that's like the key to solving a lot of big issues. It's like to be proactive, to be ahead of the issue instead of chasing behind it. So, nice. Good for Germany. Okay, next one. How a public transit expansion in Bogota, Colombia in the house, is cutting commute times for millions. How a public transit expansion in Bogota is cutting commute times for millions. Nice. I was just in Bogota a few months ago, earlier this year. Like 5 months ago, something like that. 6 months ago. Okay. In Bogota, Colombia, traffic congestion has long been one of the city's most persistent problems. Long commutes reduced productivity and quality of life, especially for residents living far from job centers. Rather than focusing solely on subways, Bogota expanded its bus rapid transit system, known as Transmilenio, while integrating bike lanes and pedestrian access. I will say, when I was in Bogota, the bike lanes were just full there were so many people biking. So that was interesting. New routes were added to underserved neighborhoods, and station design was improved to reduce bottlenecks. I don't know what bottlenecks is. But actually, let me look it up because I want to know what it means. So let me go to my dictionary right here and search bottlenecks. Okay, so a bottleneck is a narrow section of road or a junction that impedes traffic flow. Okay. So, yeah, it's like makes traffic slower. All right. By 2025, average commute times had dropped in several districts, particularly in the city's southwest. Surveys showed increased public transit use and reduced reliance on private cars. Urban mobility experts often cite Bogota as proof that effective mass transit doesn't require decades-long megaprojects. It requires intelligent design, political will, and consistent expansion. Nice, Colombia. Okay. Next one is how Scotland, sorry, we don't say that. We say Scotland. It's not Scotland, it's Scotland. How Scotland is restoring peatlands, I guess that's how you say it, to fight climate change and flooding. I don't even know what peatlands are. Let me search that in my handy dandy dictionary. Land consisting largely of peat or peat bogs. Okay, but what is peat? A brown deposit resembling soil formed by the partial decomposition of vegetable matter in the wet acidic conditions of bogs and fens, and often cut out and dried for use as fuel in gardening. Okay, so it's kind of like soil, but not really. Okay. Interesting. Okay. In the Scottish Highlands and parts of Aberdeenshire, Aberdeenshire, I don't know. Peatlands, waterlogged. Oh, here it gives me the definition right in the art, right here. It says waterlogged landscapes that store massive amounts of carbon. Okay, well, that's one way of describing peatlands. Had been degraded for decades by drainage and overgrazing. Once damaged, peat releases carbon instead of storing it and increases flood risk downstream. Scotland launched a large-scale peatland restoration program, blocking old drainage channels, re-wetting soil, and reintroducing native vegetation. Local contractors and landowners were paid to carry out restoration work, keeping economic benefits within rural communities. By 2025, restored peatlands were absorbing carbon again and slowing water runoff during heavy rains. Scientists estimate that healthy peatlands can store more carbon per hectare than forests. Climate researchers now describe peat restoration as one of the most cost-effective nature-based climate solutions available, and Scotland's program is influencing land management policies across Northern Europe. Wow. Nice. Okay, Scotland. I see you. I see you, Scotland. All right. How are we feeling? Are we good? I'm just checking in. Do you need to go to the bathroom? You could take me with you if you want. If you're listening in some headphones, just go to the bathroom. It's okay. Okay, let's continue with the next one. Ooh, this next one is about Vietnam. I love Vietnam. Okay. How Vietnam reduced traffic deaths by redesigning streets instead of blaming drivers. I will say that I spent some months in Vietnam, maybe like 4 months, something like that, 4 months in total. And I experienced the cities and the driving and the traffic and the being on a motorbike and stuff, and it is crazy. And in Vietnam, they drive very like, it's a little crazy. It might not be the craziest in the world, but it is, for me, it is a bit crazy in Vietnam. Like, it's a bit reckless and chaotic, and like at an intersection, just people like driving into, like basically driving into each other, driving through each other. Like it's very chaotic, and it's very crowded, and yeah, it's tons of people, tons of motorbikes. So I'm interested to see what this has to say. Okay. And I'm saying this in comparison to like other like, for example, I also experienced Thailand. Bangkok is very crazy, but other places are not so bad. Thai drivers tend to be a little bit more chill compared to Vietnamese drivers, a little bit more reserved or organized. But anyways, okay. In major Vietnamese cities like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, which they just call Saigon, basically. Saigon. The biggest city. Hanoi is the capital, though. Hanoi is the capital in the north, and Ho Chi Minh, or Saigon, is the biggest city in the south. Traffic incidents were long considered an unavoidable side effect of dense urban life and widespread motorcycle use. Public safety campaigns focused heavily on individual behavior, urging riders to be more careful, wear helmets, and follow rules more strictly. Over the past several years, that approach shifted. City planner, we got a beep beep going on. Hold on. There's a truck, maybe a trash truck, I don't know, going by and beeping. You hear that? Hopefully it's not waking you up. We'll just wait for a second for it to pass, and then we can continue with our story. It is 2 a.m. All right. I think they've left. Okay. So, over the past several years, that approach shifted. City planners began focusing on street design itself. Intersections were simplified. Dangerous turns were eliminated. And clearer lane separation was introduced between cars, motorcycles, bicycles, and pedestrians. Speed limits were reduced in residential areas, and traffic calming features like raised crossings and narrower lanes were added. Okay, so they're saying that in the past several years that this has improved. And I was in Vietnam this year, like earlier this year, like 9 months ago or 8 months ago or whatever. So I guess, God, I don't want to know what it was like before. It must have been worse. If my impression was that it was chaotic now, imagine like 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Okay. By 2025, national transport data showed a sustained decline in serious traffic injuries and fatalities in redesigned areas. Officials emphasized that the biggest gains came not from stricter enforcement alone, but from making dangerous behavior physically harder. Urban safety experts now point to Vietnam's experience as evidence that well-designed streets can save lives more reliably than public awareness campaigns by themselves. All right. Yeah, because people were wearing helmets for the most part and stuff and stuff, but it's still you just can't it's just when there's a lot of people on the road and it's I don't know, stuff happens. Um One time I was driving in Vietnam and I wasn't even in a big city, I was in a small town. And these this guy just drove past me and kind of like hit my mirror or something on my bike, and like he like hit me, but it wasn't enough to actually like cause an accident. He just brushed my mirror as he went by really fast, and it scared me. It really scared me, but he was driving like crazy. But yeah, I loved riding the scooters, the mopeds. Like I loved renting a scooter in when I was in Southeast Europe, not Europe, Asia. When I was in Southeast Asia, like Vietnam, Thailand, um, Bali, Malaysia, whatever. I loved renting and using the scooter, but it was, it was so great. I would, just be at my Airbnb or my hotel and like, oh, I want to go somewhere. I just go on my scooter and drive somewhere. And it was so fun. I love it. Like I love riding the scooter, and it was so liberating, right? To not have to just have wheels basically. I haven't had wheels since I lived in the United States when I was like 19, 20, when I had a car, So for like the past 8 years I haven't had my own wheels basically. So this was like the first time I had my own like little vehicle, and it was so fun. But I just kept thinking like I can't stay here. I can't keep doing this forever because I'm one of these days I'm going to get in an accident. Like I'm just too just my risk of getting in an accident driving a motorbike or any vehicle is much higher than if I just don't have one and I don't use it and I only use public transportation or whatever. And so it was really fun, but I wouldn't want to do that my whole life, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, plenty of people do and they're fine, but I don't know. I was just kind of nervous about it. I didn't drive everywhere in Vietnam. Like I specifically didn't drive in some of the um biggest, like I didn't drive in Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City, the biggest cities, because they were way too big. Actually, you know what? I didn't even drive in any of the cities in Vietnam. I only drove in the small town. There was like a small touristy town that I drove in. But the cities in Vietnam, especially the two biggest ones, they intimidated me too much. They were crazy. But I did drive in the second biggest city in Thailand, Chiang Mai, which is a lot more relaxed and felt like better. It's still a little bit crazy, but it's not as much. I don't know. Depends what time of year also. Yeah, but my favorite places were driving in like more suburban or small town areas. I drove on Penang Island in the suburbs, and that was pretty nice. I drove in Bali. Some places in Bali there's too much traffic and it's crazy, but other places it's nice. It just depends on where you go. Anyways, okay. So, glad to see that Vietnam is working on making their roads and stuff safer, but yeah, it's scary. Okay. Next one is called How Costa Rica Protected Its Rainforests While Expanding Tourism. Expanding tourism. It always... Okay, no, this is not just like a recent news article. This is about over time. Okay. Costa Rica is often cited as an environmental success story. but the outcome wasn't accidental. In the 1980s, the country faced rapid deforestation driven by cattle ranching and agriculture expansion. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. That is the leading cause of deforestation in the Amazon. Cattle ranching. Yep. Growing food to feed cattle. Threatening biodiversity and water systems. Rather than banning land use outright, Costa Rica introduced a payment for ecosystem services program. Landowners were paid to preserve forests, replant trees, and protect watersheds. These incentives were funded partly by fuel taxes and later supported by ecotourism revenue. By 2025, more than half of Costa Rica's land area was covered by forest again. National parks such as Corcovado, Monteverde, and Tortuguero, Tortuguero, became major economic drivers, attracting visitors while remaining strictly protected. Environmental economists often highlight Costa Rica as proof that conservation and economic growth don't have to compete if ecosystems are treated as valuable infrastructure instead of wasted land. Yes, absolutely, 100%. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to priority. And obviously, countries, and places that don't prioritize protecting the environment are just simply not going to. But it is important to acknowledge that Costa Rica, for whatever reason, has been one of the most touristy, foreigner frequented places in Latin America. I mean, Costa Rica is one of the most visited places in Latin America by foreigners. Has one of the most tourism and one of the highest amounts of tourism, especially like ecological tourism, more nature-based tourism. So yeah, they've had the advantage of a lot of revenue from that, and for many years, for a long time, it's been that way. And to help get that in the first place, they were able to kind of market themselves. I don't know the specifics, but all I know is that I know people who don't travel to Latin America like ever, who have been to Costa Rica, just because Costa Rica, and they went a long time ago, like when I was a little kid, just because probably Costa Rica was marketing itself, or maybe it was working with the US to promote its, tourism or whatever. I don't know the specifics, but all I know is they've had that advantage for a long time. Whereas, we could look to other countries and be like, come on, why are you guys not protecting your environment? But they are not having as much of an income stream. They're not getting as much income from tourism and from abroad, and yeah. Of course, if a country is, run by more intelligent people, you could find other ways to fund it, right? If there's a will, there's a way. If it's your priority, you'll make it happen. But it is important to note that Costa Rica has gotten a lot of money from tourism, so that helps. And a lot of the tourists go to see the nature, so it's like it's like a cycle of like, okay, we protect our tourism sites and then we get more money from tourism for that specifically. So yeah, they got a nice little system over there. I haven't been there. I hear it's a bit pricey now because of that, but yeah, I'd love to go to Costa Rica someday. Costa Rica. Pura vida. Okay, next one. how Taiwan strengthened disaster response through neighborhood-level planning. Taiwan is highly vulnerable to earthquakes and typhoons, making disaster preparedness a constant concern. After several severe storms in the 2010s, or 2010s, officials recognized that centralized response alone was not fast enough during emergencies. Local governments began investing in neighborhood-level preparedness programs. Residents were trained in basic disaster response. Evacuation routes were clearly marked, and local supply hubs were established in schools and community centers. Okay, so once again, we're seeing the recurring theme of more preparedness, more planning to deal with disasters. Digital alert systems were improved to provide real-time information in multiple languages. By 2025, drills were common in both urban areas like Taipei and rural coastal towns. Emergency response experts note that Taiwan's strength lies in redundancy. When national systems are overwhelmed, local networks continue functioning. This layered approach has significantly reduced injuries and recovery times after major weather events. Nice. All right. Yeah, these Asian countries over there, they get hit with crazy typhoons and tsunamis and earthquakes and hurricanes and yeah, lots of crazy stuff, lots of disaster. The Philippines, God, they get destroyed. Indonesia, they get a lot of destruction. Sucks. It's kind of scary to live in a place like that. It's like yeah, you never know. When I was in Malaysia, I met a guy, actually my Airbnb host was from Indonesia, but he moved to Malaysia. And he said that he lost like his whole family to an earthquake. I think it was an earthquake in Indonesia. Like a lot of his family died. Like his, parents, and brothers and stuff, sisters. I don't know exactly how many people, but anyways, I met him living the good life in Malaysia with his wife and kids, and he was such a nice and happy guy. So it was crazy to find out that he lost a lot of his family back in Indonesia to natural disasters. It was crazy. Like, I was just hanging out with them, and randomly his son said that, his child son just said that. And that was like a shock. That was crazy. I didn't know what to say. But yeah, it's just like the reality for a lot of people who live in places like that. It's just like so common. People lose their whole lives to natural disasters. It's tragic. Yeah, it's insane. All right. That's good that Taiwan is trying to get better at that. Okay. Next one is how a region in Italy revived traditional agriculture to boost local economies. Okay. In Emilia-Romagna, I don't speak Italian. A region in northern Italy known for products like Parmigiano Reggiano. That's what I'm assuming that they say. And balsamic vinegar. Small farms were struggling to compete with industrial agriculture. Younger generations younger generations were leaving rural areas, threatening both livelihoods and cultural traditions. Regional authorities responded by supporting cooperatives, geographic labeling, and direct-to-consumer sales. Farmers received assistance to modernize production while preserving traditional methods, and food tourism was actively promoted. By 2025, exports of protected regional products had increased, and rural employment stabilized. Visitors came not just for sightseeing, but to experience food culture tied to specific towns and landscapes. Agricultural researchers describe Emilia-Romagna as Romagna? Is it Romagna or Romagna? I don't know. As an example of how heritage-based economies can remain competitive without abandoning authenticity. Yeah, I would be shocked if like the birthplace of certain very famous Italian foods does not become like a historical tourist site, because worldwide people go crazy for Italian food. You know, people love Italian food. And basically, I would assume that the places where they come from would be like popular with tourists, and yeah, I mean, I would assume so, but I don't know. I guess people are just so used to like tourists are just so used to traveling just to like cities and stuff. If they don't see somebody going there on Instagram, they might not even think to go to the countryside. I don't know. Anyways, next story. How Australia is reducing wildfire risk by bringing back indigenous land practices. All right. Yeah, Australia and those wildfires. In parts of New South Wales and Victoria, devastating bushfires in recent years forced a reassessment of land management strategies. Fire suppression alone had allowed fuel to build up, making fires more intense and harder to control. State agencies began working with Indigenous fire practitioners to reintroduce cultural burning, low-intensity, carefully timed fires used for thousands of years to manage landscapes. These burns reduce fuel loads while protecting ecosystems. Okay, I'm just trying to understand what's going on here. So, fire suppression allows fuel to build up, making fires more intense. I don't understand what they mean by fuel to build up. Okay, anyways, so I guess you have to you have to make a little fire so that it doesn't, you have to make some little fire so that it doesn't turn into one big fire. I don't know. These burns reduce fuel loads while protecting ecosystems. By 2025, areas using cultural burning showed lower fire severity, and healthier vegetation patterns. Programs also created employment opportunities for Indigenous communities and strengthened cultural knowledge transmission. Fire ecologists emphasize that these practices are not a return to the past, but a scientifically supported tool for adapting to a hotter, drier climate. Fire ecologists. That's an interesting job title. Imagine, profession. Imagine saying that you are a fire ecologist. It's kind of cool. Yeah, okay. How we feeling? Here it's about 2:20 in the morning. I think I'm gonna call it a night for me. Um, I still don't know how long I'm gonna make this video, so this might be the end of it, or there might be another part. I don't know. Either way, it's been great having you here, and I really hope that you have enjoyed my voice. I hope that you enjoy listening, and I hope that you're getting used to the sounds of English and that you've learned something. I don't know, anything. Or I hope that we got another truck. There's so many trucks, so many loud trucks that go by at 2 in the morning, beeping, making all kinds of crazy noises. It's crazy. Anyways, I hope that you have been able to relax. I hope that a great many of you are asleep right now and you're dreaming and you're in La La Land and you don't even know what I'm saying. That would be awesome. These trucks going by are gonna be the end of me. They're gonna ruin my career. They're gonna ruin this video. Just kidding. Yeah, I wanted to tell you. What did I want to tell you? I wanted to tell you that God, they're really making a lot of noise out there. Sorry. I need to focus. Okay. I want to tell you that the longer you listen to these videos, the longer you let them play, even if you don't want to listen to them, but you just like let them play, or whatever. You know, you could put it on mute and just let it play. It helps increase my watch time, which then tells YouTube to show this video to more people, which then helps me. So, yeah, I really appreciate, and it's okay. It doesn't have to be all in one day. Like, for example, if you listen to 20 minutes one day, and then the next day you come back and you pick up where you left off and you listen to another 20 minutes, and then like that, YouTube remembers your history of how much you've watched the video in total. So you can do it on multiple days, multiple nights. It doesn't have to be all at once, but for those of you who listen to these to the end, even over the course of multiple days, it really helps a lot. And I just wanted to take a moment to express my gratitude to you for that. And I appreciate you very much. And I love you. And I hope that you are doing wonderful and you are relaxed. Your nervous system is calm. And I will catch you later. See ya.